Coming up today on Locked On Texas Tech, gloom, despair, and agony on me. In other words, a mobile quarterback is coming to town.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. And thanks as always for making us your first listen. Today's episode brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use our code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. With the only Chris Level, I'm Casey Cowan. Chris, great to be back with you. And as we turn the page on this Wednesday and hit the downhill slope of the week, we are going to be defensively focused on today's episode. Obviously, with 66 on the board from the weekend that was, justifiably talking a lot of offense, thinking about a lot of offense, leaving that ball game. But as anybody that was paying attention knows, Tim DeRuyter's defense contributed mightily to that point total with a pick six of their own, and then some other takeaways that gave the Red Raider offense a short field. So obviously when you're a winner by a score of 66-21, you're having fun in just about every phase of the game. But now it is back to life, back to Big 12 play as Arizona State comes to town. And I think everyone understands, a lot of fun last weekend, but it was North Texas on the opposing sideline. So what exactly are we to make of this outburst? And I think we all understand that, as I told a member of our Matador Mob insider crew earlier today, if you're not following this up with something successful or at bare minimum competitive, your good vibes will disappear like a fart in the West Texas win. So a lot of pressure on this upcoming conference opener Saturday afternoon from the Jones. And I think a lot of that does land squarely on the shoulders of Tim DeRuyter's defense. Got off to a shaky start with 51 against Abilene Christian. I thought a decent response against Washington State in its totality, but obviously one of the nightmares that has come back around to haunt Tech fans throughout the years, throughout the decades, was there in Pullman, and that was a mobile quarterback being mobile throughout the day to the tune of a record-setting performance as far as Washington State record books are concerned. And here we go, brace for impact. We've got that to deal with again this week as Arizona State comes to town. And Coach DeRuyter spoke this week about how they prepare to get ready for a quarterback that can really hurt you with his legs as well. Here's Coach DeRuyter.
The thing with this quarterback, he's done a great job of not necessarily design quarterback runs, but where the pocket breaks down, if you don't keep him contained or you don't have a spy guy, he's really hurting some people. So we've got to put together a great plan. We got to do a much better job than what we've done the first couple of weeks as far as our pocket integrity. Our pass rush right now, we've got to get a better push inside and not as high rushers outside. We're letting step up lanes, and this guy will, he'll take advantage of that. I mean, he had a 40-something yard run the other day that really helped turn the game in their favor when they were down. So it's something that's a concern that we'll be working on this week.
My Timbers always get the shivering as a Tech fan when you got one of these guys up next on the schedule, Chris. So easier said than done to contain one, but obviously a little insight there into the plan to try to make that happen.
Yeah, because this is every system and QB is different. I think this is a quarterback in Sam Levitt that is very young. I think he's only like 19 or 20 years old. He's just kind of still very much in its infancy of his college career. But what Coach DeRuyter is basically talking about there is that it's the one thing that it's a nightmare for a defensive coordinator, because you can have it all covered, and then he just goes, you know what? I don't like what I'm getting here. I'm going to go get me 10 or 17. And then you just you do that, and you can't really defend it at times because there's just not a lot of defense for that. That's why so many people choose to run their QB on purpose, because it's the one guy you don't have a gap accounted for and all the things when you start talking about the rules of defenders and all that stuff. So
particularly in college too, right? Like a QB can kind of out-athlete some guys sometimes that doesn't really happen the same way in the NFL.
Yeah, and that's why you hear him talking about, these terms like pocket integrity. and rush lanes and all these things. Because what in layman's terms, it's like don't go too hard with your rush, because if you get up too far up the field, he gone. And so you kind of want to rush and collapse the pocket, if you will. Because ideally, if you're Tim DeRuyter, what you want, if you could choose it and say, this is what we want to have happen, is you make this kid try to beat you throwing the football repeatedly. Like, you want to take away Skattebo, you want to take away his ability to get loose, and you want him to have to drop back and read a defense and like beat you this way. He's hovered around 58, 60% completion rate. He's only thrown one interception, but they haven't really leaned on him to beat you. And that's what you ultimately want. So taking away the run game and taking away his ability he's going to get you for some stuff. That's just the way it goes. Well, you just want to limit it and make sure that he's not just repeatedly on third down going, hey man, I'm just going to get my 8 and I'm going to, and the crowd's going to be going, the cool PA announcer is going to be going third down.
That's right.
And everybody's going to get hyped up, and then he's just going to, move the chains. And it's like death by 1,000 paper cuts. So you have to eliminate some of that. You're probably better playing something like this with some of the speed that you have and depth that you have than you have in years past, because there's times where you just mentioned the out athlete. You've got or should have enough speed, and you should have learned from the example from 2 weeks ago. That's where I also go with that. John Mateer, he was just tough, man. This is a guy that is relying on his moxie and figuring it out, and he wasn't afraid to stick his nose in there. Levitt's going to be a little bit more of, I'm going to get mine and then get down. He's not going to want to like be a running back per se. But this is a challenge for sure. But that's how they make it go. And when you take away Skattebo, it's like Skattebo, then that's where, I think Sam Levitt can kind of ding you a little bit. But again, make him throw the football. Even if he's successful with it, can he continue to do that? That's ultimately, I think, the choice that you're making. And what's funny about Arizona State schematically, I think their season was so bad last year. They went 3-9. They were beat up. They weren't going anywhere because they had been deemed ineligible for postseason like 2 days before their season started. Yep. So I think that they basically said, let's try everything we can offensively. And so they've got all these formations and personnel groups and swinging gates and all this craziness, almost to just mess with coaches this year, because they could basically experiment. And then but now every coach that plays them must go, okay, well, I guess we got to show our guys this, that we, and you don't really know what all they're going to lean on week to week, but you kind of have a feel for, boy, it really is, it's the running back and QB's legs that scare you the most.
I don't know if it's only a Texas Tech problem. I doubt it is, but they're the only team that I have ever rooted for. So maybe it's just near and dear to me that we have seen time and time and time and time, and then another time, and then another time again, that a mobile quarterback has just been able to carve you up. And if it wasn't for Mateer with a most recent memory now to add to the pile, I'd be thinking about Avery Johnson. I'd probably be thinking about that K-State game where somehow, some way, you come in and a guy that you've never heard of before that day goes for, 5 touchdowns or something like that?
Seneca Wallace.
Yeah, that's the OG of nightmare mobile quarterbacks.
I mean, it really hasn't just
That's
stopped.
the OG.
Yeah, because that is very different than Avery Johnson. They're the same, but it's different. That's again, there's QBs that are okay, dropping back and they're running to run, and there's other guys that are running around looking to throw. Yeah. Seneca Wallace was more of I'm going to run around here and I'm looking to throw, but then if I need to, whereas Avery Johnson, man, he's just dropping back, and it's like I'm going to wait. Colin Klein, all those Kansas State guys, I'm dropping back and I'm going to run this thing. But and I don't know necessarily what category I would put Levitt in per se. I just know he can hurt. I mean, it's 50 or 60 yards a game, but you got to keep him honest. I mean, You just gave up 200 to John Mateer from Washington State. And I know Tim DeRuyter kind of chuckled about it at his weekly availability. It was like, we better be ready for this.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, and even if it's not like the highest total, like even if he doesn't go for 230 yards or 120, it's like back-breaking moments, third down. I mean, you already outlined it, where it really seems to come back and bite you, and it may only be like 4 times a game or something that it does it, and you think, all right, it wasn't that bad, but it's in those key moments where you got a chance to get off the field or get a red zone stop or something like that, that obviously it can really just take the wind out of everyone's sails. And there is that other guy that we didn't mention because he's kind of in a category unto himself, but maybe, well, certainly one of the greatest of all time on the college level in doing that. Vince Young. I remember a trip to town for Vince Young and the Longhorns once upon a time as well. That was not any fun for those in red and black. So several examples, and you're right, of some different varieties. They haven't all done it the same, but have punished Texas Tech over the years as far as that category goes. I know that from a fan standpoint, we immediately want to go to, all right, spy the guy. I think that a lot of that is rooted in like video game play and stuff like that. It seems a lot easier on a PlayStation to spy a mobile quarterback, but I know there'll be some of that, I guess, that they'll be looking to do. Obviously, you take one guy out of coverage de facto for the most part whenever you do something like that. Is there an obvious answer as to who that guy would be or what type of athlete Texas Tech has that would kind of fit what they're looking for in that regard? First, today's episode brought to you by FanDuel, and America's #1 sportsbook is shaking it up to kick off football season with an offer a football fan can't afford to miss. Right now, through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with the YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and of course, you can cancel at any time. Again, from right now through September 22nd, bet $5 and take advantage of a free 3-week trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to download America's #1 sportsbook. Today's episode brought to you by Gametime. Never sweat buying tickets to your favorite event again with Gametime. It's always a breeze using the Gametime app where you're going to find the best last-minute deals, and I love being able to scout out a view from any seat before pulling the trigger. Of course, you're always doing it at the lowest price guaranteed. Gametime has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event and even an hour after it begins, which means you can finish off that final brat, that final beer at your own pace at the tailgate, because Gametime is the place to find last-minute seats to any event. Gametime gives you the fastest and easiest way to buy tickets, but not just fast, also secure and simple to use. So right now, download the Gametime app and create an account and use our promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account and redeem our code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today for last-minute tickets at the lowest price, guaranteed. Is there an obvious answer as to who that guy would be or what type of athlete Texas Tech has that would kind of fit what they're looking for in that regard?
I think you absolutely employ this strategy at times this weekend. The key is, when are you doing it and how often are you doing it? Because it's not an all or nothing. I think you mix it in,
Gotcha.
and so he doesn't know. And I mean, your natural guys are obviously Jacob Rodriguez or Ben Roberts. However, if you really wanted to have some fun with this and like this was his job, I mean, Mike Dingle,
One of the first names I'm thinking of,
because he's got the speed, and if it's just, hey, he's your responsibility. That's it. Like you eye him and don't let him loose.
If he moves, kill him. If that's still allowed within reason. Hey, I'm thinking about the star position too, and maybe a Jordan or a McCarty could factor in.
Fair, absolutely, and that's up to, because I mean, Tim may choose to confuse or attempt to where it's different guys or different positions, kind of, and so you'll see the chess matches is, Arizona State, that's why you work in a little motion and you find, hey, you got to tell us what coverage you're in. We're going to send some guys in motion and then figure out what you're doing and all those things. So that's certainly the game within the game. But I think that there would definitely be some spy mixed in. And he talked about that at some level too, just, and not, it's a young QB. And that's why Tim is really good with his system and has been for years, switching from a 4-man front to a 3-man front and like kind of naturally doing this because it really throws off what you can check to and all that stuff. When it's working properly. Obviously, we've seen examples when it wasn't working properly. And although I do think that they've learned from some of that, they've improved. And I guess we'll find out how much come up this weekend.
Yeah, you've got the plan over here, and then you got a fist meeting your mouth over there, and then we figure out what's really going to happen whenever the lights are on. As for a more traditional way to carry the football, Arizona State employs a running back that I really enjoy watching, aside from when he's going against the team I'm rooting for, which is going to be the case this week. You've already mentioned the name Skattebo, and Coach DeRuiter talked about what he brings to the field as well.
The running back. I mean, the offense goes through him. One of the top backs in our conference. He's in a lot of ways a lot like Taj, where he's a guy that can make you miss. He runs with a lot of power, really good short area quickness. Their scheme's a little different. They run a wide zone primarily, and he can get to the edge in a hurry. And as he does, he's either bouncing it or cutting it back, and does a really good job with his feet and vision and anticipation of cutting it. And when he gets one-on-ones, there's not many guys that get him down, and there's no yardage. You better have a gang of guys there tackling it, because he'll run through people.
Two of the toughest running backs in the conference, certainly two of the toughest in the nation, going to be in Jones Stadium on Saturday night.
And Tim's counterpart is going to be saying the same thing that we're going to say here, that the challenges are to take those two guys out. I think both coordinators will say, let's limit or take out what these guys can do, and let's put it in the QB's hands, and let's see. And I hope that you can do that, because I trust Barron a lot more than I trust Levitt, especially with what is around Barron compared to what Arizona State has at the skill spots. And then I just like my setting being at home. So we'll get into that maybe later on in the week. But Skattebo is, and it is a heck of a statement to say one of the best running backs in the league. But, I mean, at this point, I don't disagree with that, because you've got a bunch of them. And R.J. Harvey at UCF, and we know about Ollie Gordon and Devin Neal at Kansas. And you're going to see another 1,000-yard back from last year that'll come into the Jones Stadium next week, and Corey Kiner from Cincinnati, and on it goes. They're everywhere. But this one has kind of come on the scene and really kind of given Arizona State a bit of an identity. He does not try to shy away from contact. He initiates it. You hear talking about population to the ball. I mean, DB Carroll and Mo Horn and some guys like that met with the media yesterday, and they talked a lot about, that fact. Like, we have to help tackle when it's run. We have to all be there. He doesn't go down. He always is moving forward, which is a sign of a good running back. He's about 5'10", 215, and he's a load. He's like Taj, not great top-end speed. But like, his last two games are fascinating, because it's 264 versus Mississippi State, but then it's just 62 yards, I think, against Texas State. So they kind of cracked the code. However, they've had some red zone problems, and I think that once they got in the red zone, he's the one that basically they leaned on, and he got into the end zone twice. So there's not going to be a lot of secrets here. This is just – and you hear wide zone scheme, where you have seen this before. 2 years ago, it ate you up, and you had no answer for it, and you knew it was coming. And that was the Baylor game 2 years ago. This is what Jeff Grimes at Baylor had been running the last 2 years. Now, last year, you knew it was coming. You learned from it the year before, and they had no answer. They could not run it at all, and Jeff Grimes ends up not lasting with the Baylor staff, and now he's the OC at Kansas and dealing with the Jayhawk problems right now. But that's kind of the scheme. They just get everybody out on the edge, and then want you either overrunning it, and then you kind of cut it back and away you go. And so that's what he's been really good at here. But this will be a challenge, and both teams are going to test this immediately. You get Taj, you get Skattebo. Let's see who can stop the other guy quickest. That's going to be, we'll know that early and often for sure.
What do you think the story has been for them in the red zone?
I don't know. So I sent this out to our insider group, the Matador Mob, earlier, but it's fascinating because they have red zone problems depending on who's on the field. Defensively, they've allowed a bunch of touchdowns. Offensively, they get into the red zone, I think, 14 times. They've only converted those into 7. So that's 50%. There's some field goals mixed in, but if you're the defense and you allow a team in the red zone and you hold them to a field goal, to me, that's a win in today's college football.
Yeah.
And so I think if you're Texas Tech, being able to finish drives and not settling for field goals and getting it, that's big. But then obviously if you can hold them to field goal attempts, and it's just check the QB and check Skattebo, make somebody else beat you. And maybe it's Levitt's arm. I don't know, but that's, I don't want to say it's an easy scout because they have other skill players too. They have other guys that can hurt you, but that's, but I don't know if there's a direct correlation into what their struggles have been, where they just get to the red zone and then just kind of struggle. But I mean, half the time is not a good percentage at all.
And that's right. If you are a Matador Mob Locked On Texas Tech insider, you already know this because Chris Level sent you a personal text message telling you this. So if you want to get involved, get involved. Information in the show notes and also on our X page at Locked On Tech. And I'll give you another chance to do that before we are out of here today. Before we are done, Chris, I want to get to something that obviously was popping out as an issue in the non-conference slate defensively. First, today's episode brought to you by Roy. Red Raider fans, have you heard about Roy? It stands for Return on You, and it's a new platform that lets you, the fan, get involved in NIL like never before by making contributions directly to your favorite athletes. By supporting players directly, you can help shape the roster, retain talent, and even keep your favorite athletes out of the transfer portal. As you all know, NIL has changed the game for athletes, and Roy is changing the NIL game for fans. And here's why Roy is different. It directly supports the players. Roy allows fans to directly back their favorite college athletes. And with Roy, fans can play a key role in shaping the future of their favorite teams while athletes maximize their NIL potential. Also, even better for you, there's no risk. That's right. Fans' contributions are securely held and are only distributed if the athlete makes the decision that aligns with the fan's support. If not, the money is returned to the fan. So download Roy today for iOS or Android and enter our referral code Locked On, and you're going to automatically be entered into a sweepstakes to win $5,000 cash. Visit joinroy.com for additional details. No purchase necessary, void where prohibited. Get the Roy app for iOS or Android and start making an impact on your favorite team today. And use our referral code Locked On for an opportunity to win $5,000 cash money. Visit joinroy.com for more details. No purchase necessary, void where prohibited. Get off the sidelines and into the NIL game with Roy. I want to get to something that obviously was popping out as an issue in the non-conference slate defensively, and that was what was happening on the back end of that as far as defending the pass. And something that Coach DeRuiter talked about was sort of asked like, hey, it seemed like it was a little bit better against North Texas, and I thought he made an astute observation.
Well, we couldn't get much worse, right? So I think our guys just are doing a better job in their detail of execution. We're not perfect, but we're playing with better eyes. We're doing things that we did during training camp and just being much more consistent and focused in what they need to do. We got to do a better job rerouting receivers. We're not doing that consistently enough when we're in zone. In our man coverage, we're making them throw contested catches, and if you're playing tight coverage, they got to throw good balls. And so we got to continue to work on playing a little bit tighter in man, but we're going to mix things up and hopefully mix some disguise. We've gotten away from that a little bit in trying to get good at playing our technique and get our cleats in the grass and know what to do, as opposed to getting into the cerebral game of maybe showing something that we're going to get into later. So as we go in the season, we'll hopefully get more than that and make it a little bit harder on quarterbacks where they don't know what they're going to get just when they walk up to the line of scrimmage.
And a brilliant way to start a year, nowhere to go but up. That leaves a lot of good stuff for later. So I don't know if that was part of the strategy or not, but I like it. And curious, I mean, given what we've talked about with so much being done on the ground, I'm kind of curious what sort of challenge the pass defense will face on Saturday.
Well, and if you listen to what Tim said, I think it's pretty fascinating because a lot of times coaches can go a variety of different ways here. A lot of times coaches get out the pen or the pencil and they add more to their call sheet. Like, man, we got to put more, we got to scheme more. We got to do more things, call more different plays or show whatever. Whereas to me, really good coaches, they turn that pen or pencil the other way around and they get the eraser side of it and they start taking things off and they simplify and take some things off of their players' plate. And then, let's get good at some of this stuff before we try to get good at all of it. And I think that he's, I don't want to say simplified, but he's kind of, you hear him saying, we're not doing as much of that stuff right now. We're trying to just get good on certain things. And I think you've clearly seen some improvement and they'll continue to get better. But Tim's scheme is very complex, but it's very simple once you understand it, if that makes sense. That's kind of a oxymoron. I'm kind of talking in circles there, but like older players will tell you, because I've talked to them before in previous years, they're like, it's really so simple. It's like once it clicks and you get it, but it's meant to be very confusing for what the quarterback is seeing. And they're not probably able to show all of those looks, but the main target, because I think you asked me about what threat they're going to see pass offense. The main target is somebody that has a connection to Texas Tech. And their leading receiver is I believe it's number 0. His first name is Jordan. His last name is Tyson. This is the brother of former Texas Tech basketball player Jalen Tyson. And he is a transfer from Colorado. He went to Arizona State. He got hurt at the tail end of the 2022 season. And when Colorado was really bad, this is before Deion Sanders was there, and then bailed out, and he went to Arizona State, and he's now their leading receiver there for the Sun Devils. And so it's really, he's kind of the third down guy. He's the red zone target. I mean, it's, I don't ever want to say simple from a scouting standpoint, but when they drop back to throw it, that's typically who's been the primary read. So that's kind of, it's really the running back, the QB and his legs, and then Jordan Tyson. And they do have a tight end that has got a few numbers and all that, but it's not like some of these other teams where it's like, goodness gracious, like they've got dudes everywhere. That's not what you'll see here.
Yeah. You mentioned, I think on yesterday's show, what a luxury to have Braylon Lux back in the mix, certainly making a big difference with a pick 6 over the weekend. I talked about, really liking so far, and I know it hadn't been perfect, but liking what we've seen so far from Chapman Lewis. Obviously, you got CJ Baskerville back there. Seems like his name is being called a lot as well through the first few weeks. I'm curious what you think the read has been on Mo Horn so far this year, because you at least have finally gotten a look at what you wanted kind of your frontline collection to look like. So what do you make of number 4 so far? He's been in the fire since the get-go.
A lot of upside. One, I think he got cheap shotted in Washington State with a crackback that wasn't called. It took him out of the game. It was BS. There's no place for that in football. It's happened right in front of the referee, whatever. And I'm glad that he was okay, because I was not sure that he was going to be able to be healthy and play in the game last weekend against North Texas, but he did, and we'll move on. But it was nasty. But I think when he's out there, and he doesn't have to be like, I think it's different for him when Braylon Lux is also out there versus when he's out there and Braylon Lux is not, because I think you have a different role when Braylon's out there versus when he's not, if you're Mo Horn. I love the upside. I think this is a Mo Horn is going to be able to step into CB1 next year when Lux leaves. Yeah. But I don't mind telling you, I think that CB3 and CB4, like Jalen Peoples and Devin Cromwell, I don't know where you're at there yet. I think Macho Stevenson, I guess, is kind of sneaking around the chicken coop a little bit.
Yeah.
You've got some different options there, but I the depth at corner, which is something we talked about a lot this summer, doesn't necessarily give me the warm and fuzzies just yet. Again, they're young and they're learning, but I just think they have a ways to go. But Mo Horn is definitely, I can totally see why he was almost pencil or pinned in as the co-starter all summer, all off season. He's looked like that to me for sure.
All right, before we get out of here, another reminder. There's about 30 new made men in Red Raider land. The Matador Mob's insider group. Are you signed up? Are you texting with us already? Many of you have, and we appreciate that. I wanted to get the Dirty Dozen out of the way first, so we had our Big 12 kickoff promotion happening. Discounted rate for those first 12. Boom, 5 minutes, that was gone. So I expanded it again. Boom, 5 minutes, it's filled up. Expanded it again. Boom, the slots are filled up again. But the good times keep rolling. So make sure that you are getting signed up to be a part of the Matador Mob Insider Group right here with Locked On Texas Tech. If you're watching on YouTube, you can do so via scanning the QR code that is on the screen. If you're listening to us via podcast, you can find a link there in the show notes or also on our Twitter page. It's your direct line to Chris and I via one-on-one text straight to your phone. You're going to have the opportunity to enjoy unique members-only content and conversation, early episode releases, exclusive Q&As for Matador Mob members only. So sign up today. You get a free 14-day trial to check it out, try it on, see how it fits you. You want to keep moving forward. It's going to cost you less than a cup of coffee a month to have an opportunity to connect with Chris and I. Thanks so much to all those who took us up on that opportunity and took advantage of our Big 12 promotion to kick off conference play. We are off and running, and I'm sure I'm speaking for Chris as well when I say it was enjoyable to hear from so many.
Yeah, it was direct line of communication and all those things. And I was trying to figure the whole thing out, but jumped in there feet first, and away we go, man. So
cannonball.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. I'm like not really an old, but I'm getting close. So, but I think I figured it out and cracked the code, and away we go. Responded with several of you guys. So appreciate everybody. Seriously. Whether you're watching, listening to our show, or you're part of the insider group and all that stuff, we just appreciate the support and all that stuff. So we'll keep engaging with you guys as we do. So there you go.
Yeah, and it's really anything and everything under the sun. I mean, somebody interrogating me about am I wearing a hat because I had a bad haircut, which has happened before. Not the case this time, but it has happened before. Somebody asking me if they had seen me once at a KA keg party. I was not in a frat, but there's a possibility. I did wind up at some random keg parties back in the day. So, I mean, anything under the sun, we're there to receive your inquiries, your questions. Hell, you want to get a question to the President of the United States of America, you just run it through us, and we'll get it right up the flagpole. So take advantage of the opportunity to holler at Chris and I directly by becoming a member of the Matador Mob. A big tip of the cap again to those who have already done so. We're just getting started off and running. Plenty of fun and funky stuff still to come. Chris, appreciate your time today. As always, still got a few more go-rounds before we are heading to Jones Stadium on Saturday. So looking forward to that, man. We'll see you for the next one.
Guns up, man. We'll talk to everybody tomorrow. Happy hump day, people.
Get subscribed on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you never miss an episode. Thanks, as always, to those everydayers out there joining us once again. And one of the best ways to help us grow the show is to comment anything below. So get in there and mix it up if you haven't so far. Thanks for the time. For Chris, I'm Casey, and we hope to see you back for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.